Former MVP Derrick Rose was the most athletic point guard in NBA history. But today we're going to see if his modern counterpart, Ja Morant, can step into his shoes and live up to the hype.
Hammers it home. It's a jaw jam.
And while eventually he'll go from team to team just as D Rose did, for now he's starting off his NBA career as a member of the Chicago Bulls, immediately putting on an acrobatic display on his way to 19 points and 7 assists per game, standing out amongst the crowd so much that eventually he would finish the season as the Rookie of the Year. But if you thought Ja's road to a championship would be an easy one, you're completely mistaken. Because while he'd help the Bulls make it into the second round of the playoffs, he'd find himself up against another young star out in Cleveland, that being LeBron James, who will be one of Ja's toughest obstacles throughout his entire career. Which would make it no surprise that eventually Ja's promising rookie season would come to an abrupt end, getting swept 4-0 at the hands of the Cavaliers. He showed signs of greatness, but there's still a ton of work to be done as we now enter season 2 of his NBA journey, which thankfully would immediately appear to be better than the first, going up from 19 points to 24 per game, as well as his first All-Star appearance. So without a doubt, he's bounced back from last season and then some, even to the point where the media's crowning him as the next great point guard and the heir to Jordan for the Bulls. So while he wouldn't make that much noise in the playoffs, you gotta be somewhat encouraged as he enters season 3, which because of D Rose, will by far be Ja's most important season yet.
Why not? Why can't I be the MVP of the league?
Which is exactly what D Rose did, leapfrogging everyone in the league to eventually end the 2011 season as the youngest MVP in NBA history. And with Ja being a superstar in his own right, there's a chance that we could see him do the same. But in order to do so, he'll have to surpass players like LeBron and Kobe, which will be no easy task. He's going to have to put up some insane numbers to get it done. However, with the majority of his teammates being hard-nosed, defensively oriented psychopaths, as well as an equally psychotic head coach,
push through the pain,
it would give Ja all the leeway in the world to put up monster stat line after monster stat line by controlling the offense. As halfway through the 2011 season, he would be averaging 29 points per game as well as 9 assists, which would put him as the clear favorite for the MVP award about halfway through the regular season. There's still half a season left, but right now Ja's in first place for the MVP. He's over Kobe and LeBron. We might be watching history repeat itself. And while LeBron would be his usual dominant self and Kobe doing what the Mamba always does, Ja would be head and shoulders above the rest just as Rose was, ultimately finishing the 2011 season as the youngest MVP ever at just 22 years of age. Ja with the MVP, he's filling into D Rose's shoes. He might be doing a better job. And with Ja finishing the season as a league's top dog, the only thing left for him to do is win an NBA championship, which is something that D Rose so far has been unable to accomplish. And if somehow he can go all the way just once, he might be able to chase the ghost of another Chicago legend. But before we get to that, he's going to be tested in the second round of the playoffs, as he'd be facing LeBron and his newly formed Miami Heat Big Three, which is already a major challenge even before you consider that the last time the two faced off, it ended with Ja getting swept at the hands of LBJ. But it doesn't end there, because in real life, D Rose was also sent home by the Heat during his MVP season. So it's safe to say that despite being the recipient of the award as well, there's a good chance that Ja's year could also end as a heartbreak. But while LeBron and Ja will definitely go at it multiple times over the next several years, the team with the upper hand this time would shockingly be the Bulls. And even more shockingly, it wouldn't even be close, as while the Heat have 3 Hall of Famers, right now it's Ja's league, as he would attack the basket like nobody ever has on his way to a 4-1 series win. And while LeBron will certainly be back at some point, right now it's Ja's story that's being written, with his next chapter being in Boston to challenge the Celtics. To be honest, I did not expect him to take down Miami, but if he can take down Boston now, he's heading to the finals. And to keep it short, that's exactly what he did, as he would continue his barrage through Boston to make it to the finals for the first time. And let's keep in mind that Ja's only 22 years old and only in his 3rd season. There's still a ton of time for him to build a legendary resume. But before we get to that, obviously I gotta say the upload schedule on the channel has been completely abysmal. But today we're actually getting one step closer to fixing that, because today's video is brought to you by Factor. a meal prep service that makes it easier for you to eat better by sending you pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals right to your door. And with over 35 different items every single week to choose from, there's something for everyone, no matter your diet or your goals. Personally, for myself, the best part about Factor is that all the meals really just take 2 minutes to prepare. They're fully cooked and all you have to do is heat them back up, which is obviously perfect for me. I don't have to go and cook and clean and all that. I can literally just sit here and work on videos. And with their meals, Factor also provides plenty of snacks, smoothies, and their brand new wellness shots. So head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code MED50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life. 2 free wellness shots from 3 available flavors for every order while you're an active subscriber. So once again, thank you to Factor for sponsoring this video. Be sure to use my code, and without further ado, back to Ja Morant, who's now heading to the finals to take down one more team and one more opponent. That being Dirk Nowitzki and the Dallas Mavericks, a much older superstar well over a decade into his career, who was also ringless to this point. But unfortunately for him in the city of Dallas, the defensive psychopaths on the Bulls would lock him down. And with the jaw-dropping display of athleticism from number 1 in red, the Bulls would be taking a commanding 3-0 lead in the series, with the championship almost certainly guaranteed. But of course, with a young and relatively inexperienced team, you of course have to watch out for some mental lapses. And on the flip side, with a much older team, you know that they'll remain unfazed until the end. So while it wouldn't be Ja's fault, Dirk and the Mavs would not only take Game 4 to avoid the sweep, but also Game 5 to keep their title hopes more than alive, now putting a bunch of pressure on Ja and the Bulls to stop the bleeding before they find themselves blowing a 3-0 lead. Ja was up 3-0, he had it in the bag, but now all of a sudden, he might actually lose this one. And with the series shifting back to Dallas, the Maverick takeover wouldn't end there. They would rally behind the home fans with Dirk leading the way once again, blowing out Ja and the Bulls entering the 4th quarter, setting themselves up to force Game 7. Ja might choke a 3-0 lead. What is happening right now? So with that, the series would head back to Chicago for one last game, with Ja staring down the wrong side of NBA history. Throughout the entire existence of the league, no team has ever blown a 3-0 lead in the finals. And now he's at risk of being the face of that unfortunate stat. And if it were to actually happen, it would completely overshadow the fact that he's the MVP of the league and that he's only at the age of 22. But in the end, the MVP is a regular season award. And in order to win it, you have to win regular season games, which would ultimately give the Bulls a chance to close out the season in their home gym, which would ultimately be all the difference, as Ja would help the team get right back on track by outdueling Dirk one last time. And with only a few more seconds left in the game, it was apparently clear that Ja Morant would be walking away as a champion, just stressed out the entire city of Chicago for no reason. But at the end of the day, it counts. Ja has completed D Rose's quest for a championship in his place, now bringing a title to Chicago for the first time since the retirement of the great Michael Jordan. And with such a dominant run by Ja at such a young age, who knows? He might be able to catch him one day. But before we find out if he does, we have to get serious for a moment.
Oh, Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him holding onto his knee and down.
As the 2012 season would be the unfortunate turning point in D Rose's career, as he would sustain a knee injury that basically ended his days as a superstar. But before you freak out thinking Ja will also get injured, let's make it clear that for this video, he'll be staying completely healthy, giving him the chance to not only fulfill D Rose's potential on the Chicago Bulls, but also on the other teams that he was a part of. And maybe we might even see a glimpse of what could have happened to D Rose's career if he ultimately stayed healthy. But before we get to that, it's time for the 2012 playoffs, specifically the Eastern Conference Finals, where Ja would be trying to defend his title. But to keep it short, he'd run into LeBron, who would not only end that dream and make quick work of the Bulls, but also finish the season as the champion, basically throwing rain on Ja's parade. And their rivalry wouldn't stop in the 2013 season, as they would match up for a 3rd straight time, once again in the Eastern Conference Finals, where they would go dunk for dunk and shot for shot until eventually the series would go to Game 7. Just for Ja and the Bulls to run out of gas, as LeBron would take control in his home gym to set himself up for his 2nd finals appearance. He shoots the 3, he makes it, and he cuts it down to 29. And he's about to not go to the finals again. And To make matters worse, LeBron would shortly after win his second title a few weeks later. So while Ja struck first, LBJ definitely struck harder. And while it's not over yet for Ja, he's leaving the Bulls in the 2017 season just as Rose did to New York. So while it's not over yet, he's running out of time to get the Bulls back on track. But as far as the 2014 season goes, it's not getting any easier, as we'd be entering what some people call the golden age of point guards, where pretty much every team has some sort of star at that position who can put up a fight with Ja. But don't get it twisted, because as far as who's at the top, it's still the man himself, as he's now jumping into historic territory with averages of 30 and 10 to win his second MVP. So while he would get eliminated in the second round of the playoffs, it's going to set him and the team up nicely for 2015, especially when you consider that he'll be getting some major help, as future Hall of Famer Pau Gasol would be heading to Chicago. But most importantly, we would see the rise of one of Ja's teammates, that being Jimmy Butler, who's silently put in work over the years to become the best teammate that Ja has ever played with. While previously the Bulls were mostly a one-man show on offense, the improvement of Jimmy now gives them a devastating 1-2 punch. And it would be best shown by their playoff performance, as they would storm past Toronto in the first round and Washington in the second to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavs. And despite LeBron being back in town, the Bulls may be at their absolute best since the Jordan era, taking care of them 4-1 to head to the finals, with the last opponent in his way not being the Golden State Warriors, but surprisingly, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Very surprisingly, no Golden State in the finals. They were eliminated earlier. To be honest, Ja might have just dodged a massive bullet for now. And while at some point Steph and the Warriors are going to make some noise, Ja has to shift his focus to the OKC Thunder, who are of course led by former MVP Kevin Durant. But since it's a mostly point guard oriented league, most of the focus from the fans would be on the matchup between Russell Westbrook and Ja Morant, two fan favorite players who have strikingly similar play styles and hours upon hours of highlights. But in the end, it's a team game. And with the help of Jimmy Butler, who'd hold KD off on defense as well as provide around 20 per game on offense, as well as a steady hand of Pau Gasol, the Bulls would storm past the Thunder, defeating them easily 4-1 to win Ja his second title and first since 2011. And if he wasn't already, he's definitely doing D Rose justice by fulfilling his potential almost perfectly, which is really good timing considering the 2016 season will be the last that he plays with the Bulls. So he'll have the chance to leave D Rose's hometown team with a dynasty. And he would, at bare minimum, give himself a really good shot, as he'd be making it to the finals for a second straight time with a chance to defend his title. But standing in his way would finally be the Golden State Warriors, setting us up for another elite point guard duel. Because they're of course led by Steph Curry, who's basically the opposite of Ja in terms of play style, choosing to dominate from the outside. But in time, we would see the main consequence to a healthy and athletic point guard on the 2016 Bulls, as Ja would continue to do D Rose justice by attacking the paint like no other. And with the help of Jimmy Butler, who's still getting better, the two would make a very good case for best duo in the league, going up 3-2 in the series and eventually closing it out in the following game. The Chicago Bulls have repeated as champions. Ja's resume at this point is absolutely insane. 3 championships, 2 MVPs, definitely has a chance to be the GOAT by the time he's done here. And while it would be ideal for him to stay, he's at least leaving Chicago on a very high note, as he's entering the years where D Rose played for multiple different teams, which ultimately means that for 2017, he'll be heading to the Big Apple to take on a brand new set of challenges as a member of the New York Knicks.
Number 25, Ja Morant.
And of course, with the new team comes a brand new supporting cast, most notably future Hall of Famer Carmelo Anthony and the promising third-year player Kristaps Porzingis. So you gotta think that with prime Ja running the point, those 3 can actually make some noise. But their success is not guaranteed, because while the Bulls were easily the title favorites, the Warriors would also be making a major addition, signing Kevin Durant, another ringless star who was also sent home in the finals by Ja in the past, so it goes without saying that both he and the Warriors are out for revenge, which would ultimately set us up for a race to the championship between the two teams, with each dominating their way through their respective conferences to the top seeds in both the East and West. And with the two teams being so dominant in the regular season, it would be no surprise that a few rounds later, they would meet up in the NBA Finals with both teams ready to go at each other for completely different reasons. In the Warriors' case, both Steph and KD are in their primes, but have no titles in this universe thanks to Ja's Bulls. But on the other end of the court would be the Knicks, who have a proven champion in Ja, but also Melo, who's getting older and running out of time to win his first title, as well as Kristaps Porzingis, who will be seen as the future of the team once Melo and Ja are gone. But in the end, while this finals may be built up to be some super close battle, with 4 Hall of Famers on the Warriors, it seems like they would be in control, as Ja's 2s at the rim would be responded by plenty of 3s from Steph, and with every mid-range bucket from Melo, KD would do basically the same thing but beyond the arc for an extra point. And while KP is a really good shooter for a 7'3" guy, he would get outpaced by the other half of the Splash Bros duo. And with all those 3s, it's only fitting that the series would start off with the Warriors taking a 3-1 lead, making it safe to say that unlike no other series before, Ja Morant is in some serious trouble. Warriors team, they've got 4 Hall of Famers, 2 MVP type players, Draymond Green probably injured someone, it's over. And while the Knicks would actually show some resilience by responding in Game 5 in the Bay, as well as in Game 6 at home to miraculously force the series to Game 7, they wouldn't be able to complete the historic comeback, running out of gas in the season's final game, making the 2017 Finals one with plenty of firsts, as Ja's being taken down for the first time in the Finals, as well as it being the first title for both KD and Steph. And to add insult to injury, Ja wouldn't even have time to be upset, as he's on the move yet again. But of course, with this downward spiral, there's going to be a catch, because Ja would be heading to Cleveland to pair up with his former rival LeBron James to form maybe the most athletic duo in league history, as they'd both get into the lane and rise up for slam after slam. But while the two would dominate their way to the top seed in the Eastern Conference, Ja's season is about to take a massive turn for the worst, as he would, just like D. Rose, be traded away to the Utah Jazz, who would immediately release him before he played an official game, allowing for the Minnesota Timberwolves to sign him to finish out the season. But on the bright side, while he won't be playing with LeBron, he's at least joining up with his former sidekick in Chicago, Jimmy Butler, who's even better than before and was already crucial for 2 of Ja's 3 total titles, which means the duo now has another chance to make history. However, with Ja joining the team mid-season, they would be in for a tough postseason, as Ja would once again be dueling with the athletic Russell Westbrook, who's joined on the Thunder by Paul George and former teammate Carmelo Anthony, which would be enough to continue Ja's downward spiral, starting off with him being eliminated in 6 games, as well as the Warriors going all the way to win the championship, now giving both Steph and KD 2 titles compared to Ja's 3. With them ironically defeating the Cavs, it's gotta make you wonder if Ja's presence on the team would have given us a different result. Of course, there's no way to really know as we enter the 2019 season, but as bad as things have been, it's not completely hopeless, as along with Jimmy Butler, the Wolves also have Karl Anthony Towns as well as Andrew Wiggins, 2 good young players who are definitely capable offensively. So while Ja would see a dip in his stats, no longer averaging around 30 and 10 like his MVP days, now at only 24 and 7, the trade-off would be plenty of wins, with the Wolves jolting to the top of the Western Conference, now poised as the best potential challenger to the Golden State Warriors. However, before he does so, he'll have to go up against another all-time guard in the postseason, now facing up against the Rockets with James Harden, who's at the peak of his abilities and one of the greatest scorers ever. And to keep it short, he would outpace the entire Timberwolves team, stepping back over and over and over and over to win the series 4-1, not only ending the title hopes of one of the NBA's best teams, but also Ja's time in Minnesota, as he's now leaving his 3rd team without a championship after winning one in his final season with the Bulls. And to make matters even worse for Ja, eventually it would be the Warriors winning their 3rd straight championship, which obviously means that both KD and Steph are tying him up in total titles. And as far as Ja getting back on track to win his 4th, it's not getting any easier in the 2020 season, as he's heading to the Motor City to join the Detroit Pistons, because it's about to be his weirdest season yet, as he would be heading to a franchise with one of the most dedicated fan bases, but by the time he made it to the playoffs, he'd be sent off to the NBA bubble to play in front of absolutely nobody. And while he's been extremely fortunate to play with other great players in the past, his 2nd best teammate would be an old and kind of washed up Blake Griffin, which is ultimately explaining how he would be at his lowest seeding for the first time in a while. now dropping from the first with Minnesota, New York, and Chicago down to 6th. But maybe the most important detail of all would be the fact that he's getting older and there's a new young crop of stars ready to take over the league. And while we'll get into more detail about that later, it would be best shown by the second round, where Ja and the Pistons would get taken down by Giannis and the Bucks in 4 games. He's had a great career to this point, and if he retired now, he's heading to the Hall of Fame, but he's in the middle of an extended championship drought. But someone who would be breaking theirs would be LeBron James. After 2 titles in Miami, he's going all the way in the bubble to finish with his 3rd title to lock us into a tie between the 4 iconic stars of the 2010s. We're about to find out who was actually the best player this whole time. But of course, we have to focus most of our attention onto Ja as we enter 2021, which just so happens to be the turning point of his career. Because now at the age of 32, he's no longer the high flyer that he entered the league as, now opting for more jumpers and crafty finishes around the rim instead. But don't get it twisted, because he's not sacrificing much in effectiveness just yet, as he's still good for around 24 per game throughout the early part of the regular season. However, the main issue would be the Pistons as a team. Blake Griffin's completely washed, and they've just drafted Ja's future replacement. So with no immediate success in sight, the Pistons would actually do Ja solid and trade him back to the New York Knicks just like D. Rose, which just so happens to be the second to last team that he'll be suiting up for. But most importantly of all, Ja's chances to win a championship have definitely skyrocketed, because in real life, this Knicks team was able to make it to the playoffs, in large part due to the services of All-NBA player Julius Randle, who was the best player on the team, but also Derrick Rose, who was a great 6th man off the bench. But in this reality where he stayed healthy the whole time, Ja is even better, still at star status with just enough in the tank to make a deep playoff run. And since we're so far into his NBA journey, let's keep it short. He would prove to be the missing piece of the puzzle, because after a hard-fought first-round series against the Raptors, which would go to Game 7 with New York coming out on top, the rest of the Eastern Conference stood no chance, with Miami being taken down in 5 as well as Philly in 6, which means that Ja is making it back to the finals for the first time since 2017, where he was ironically also wearing the blue and orange. But the circumstances this time are extremely different, as now he's not going up against arguably the greatest team ever assembled. So while he'd be staring down 2 Hall of Famers in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they wouldn't even compare to that Golden State squad. Ja would be completing what he started 4 years ago, defeating the Clippers in 5 to win title number 4 with 3 seasons left to spare. And at the age of 32, on the back end of his prime, it might be his most impressive one yet. But of course, with this recent championship, a new set of problems will start to arise, as 2022 would see Ja's age go up and his stats go down, now dropping a few extra points per game to 21, which is the lowest of his career since his rookie season with the Bulls. Which is extremely ironic considering that his bid for a repeat would be ending at the hands of his former team in the playoffs, as the New Age Bulls would send him home, making it extremely obvious that Ja and the Knicks both need some serious help. But fortunately for Ja, his final season in New York would see a major and immediate improvement, as he'll now be sharing the backcourt with all-star Jalen Brunson, an elite scoring point guard, which means that Ja will change positions and slide over to the 2, which at the age of 34 is probably for the best. But of course, while his NBA journey has had its challenges, he's always adapted extremely well. While his days as the #1 option are over, he's definitely top tier at being a sidekick. So with Jalen running the show, scoring from everywhere on the court to the tune of 25 points per game, Ja would be sure to carry his weight with 18 of his own, which despite being a career low would be totally worth it. Because with the Knicks still having most of their roster from their title season, as well as Ja's psychotic head coach from his Chicago days, the whole team would contribute on the way to the #1 seed and 64 wins, which obviously puts them at the top of the Eastern Conference. And with some turmoil out west with LeBron's Lakers, as well as some chemistry issues out in Golden State, it would give Ja and Jalen all the leeway in the world to storm past rounds 1, 2, and 3 to make it all the way back to the finals. Now crossing paths with another legendary player for the last time. And his name is Kevin Durant, who's not only leading the Suns all the way to the finals, but was also one of the main reasons why Ja experienced a championship drought in the middle of his prime. So you can be sure that when you tell the story of Ja Morant, KD and the Warriors will definitely be a part of it. But also crucial to that story would be Ja's arrival in Chicago as a phenom from day one. followed by his outstanding MVP season just 2 years later, which led to his departure from the city with 3 titles under his belt and his trip from team to team in search for a basketball home that spanned over the course of 4 years. But with said story reaching its end and not much else to prove, the most iconic player of his era would be winning title number 5, as Ja would empty the tank with fancy layup after fancy layup, as well as the final few slams that he would throw down, which would be enough to finally take down KD and officially stamp himself as the most iconic player of the last era. So with his days as a superstar officially coming to its end, Ja would be making one last stop, ending up in Memphis to join up with the Grizzlies with one more goal in mind. Because with 5 championships and 2 MVPs under his belt, it's now his job to leave the game better than when he found it, by passing on all of his knowledge to the next generation, and most importantly, the next Ja Morant.